I'm so excited to be part of this today because this is like core CNBC fodder right here. Who's going to be acquired? Who's merging? Where's the takeover coming? I wanted to just point out, I'm looking here, in the last 4 years since PASPA was overturned, Sports Handle was acquired by US Bets, which was acquired by Roto Grinders, which was acquired by Better Collective, which then acquired Action Network. That's just one little stream. And I'm getting inundated all the time with people who say, hey, we have news here, we're about to acquire or be acquired or merge. It's hard to keep up. So let's talk about where we are now. Markets have plummeted. Chad, you wrote to me and pointed out, and don't I know it, you've got the whole sector off by 30% year to date. DraftKings, GAN off by more than 60%.
Yep.
And then even Caesars, which had record-breaking quarters in Las Vegas, down almost 40%, 50%. Where are we now with the markets and how that has an effect on M&A activity?
Sure. Thanks, Contessa.
Oh, wait. Chad Beynon.
Yep.
Who is with Macquarie, one of the equities analysts.
Appreciate it. Yeah, certainly the market is having a hard time valuing unprofitable companies. From what we hear from all the operators, whether it's Caesars, DraftKings, all the B2C companies, they're all saying that the playbook's working. And from a gross contribution standpoint, they're on pace to have profits within a state or on those players within 2 years. And from the beginning, that's kind of what they had been telling us. The problem is when you see these massive losses, to your point, Caesars lost over $550 million in the first quarter. It's hard for investors to believe that we're going to get to that contribution profit inflection point. And then more importantly, what's the long-term margin? And that kind of feeds into the discussion we're talking about today. If you are vertically integrated, you have the potential to have longer or higher EBITDA margins. So yeah, clearly, the B2C operators have sold off with the losses. We've been surprised to see that the B2B operators who are actually generating a profit have sold off almost to the same degree. You talked about GAN, Neo Games, they report earnings this morning. They have 20+% margins and they're selling off to the same pace as the B2C companies.
Do you think that there is a dampening effect on the M&A activity in this space because of where valuations are?
I think for the companies that we look at, there's two reasons to consider acquisitions. One is to improve the acquisition funnel, right? To get a core demographic or some users that you're not able to acquire through the media outlets. The second reason would be from a tech standpoint, and that's more the retention side. So that's the content, the consumer service, being able to differentiate. So, DraftKings acquired Golden Nugget for the acquisition funnel piece of that. They acquired SB Tech for the tech side of that. And I think a lot of other companies are thinking about it in both ways, and there's going to be some opportunities here.
And my sense is that the other reason that you might see mergers and acquisitions is because of the access to markets and to licenses. So this week, MGM Resorts made news with their acquisition of Leo Vegas for $600 million plus. Rob, talk a little bit. Rob Heller is the head of Spectrum Gaming Capital. Talk a little bit, if you will, about what does MGM get out of an acquisition like this when we know what they were really after was Entain, the big one, their partner in BetMGM.
I think we're seeing the beginning of cross-border consolidation and more consolidation between the online and land-based businesses. Leo Vegas is a very well-run company. It came to the iGaming business fairly late. They proved themselves with better technologies and maybe a better operating model. And as a result, they were a very good candidate. MGM, of course, wanted to buy Entain. They weren't successful in doing that, or maybe the pricing was just not in the right place for MGM to do it. And it's an interesting play because now they're partners with them at BetMGM. And now they're a competitor in certain markets with Entain, with having Leo Vegas. I think that the Leo Vegas deal was brilliant and is just a harbinger of things to come in that space.
They said that they're going to continue to use the technology from Entain for BetMGM. So Leo Vegas doesn't bring that to the table, but they will get access to licenses and markets in Europe, right? With that, do you think it's possible that does it put Entain on notice? Is there any chance, and I did ask the CEO of Entain this question, is there any chance that you see Jette Nygaard-Andersen turn around and make an offer for MGM?
I think that's been rumored for a long, long time. I mean, they're both large-scale companies. I don't know exactly where the numbers have changed so much. So I think Entain has fallen a lot more than MGM has as a result of this recent decline with the focus on digital. I think that you're going to see more of these types of transactions. I don't know if it's going to spur something that large, but I think MGM was sending a signal that, hey, we could do this without you. Or we can do parts of it without you. That's a common hardball tactics in corporate diplomacy, if you will.
Edward King is with Acies Investments. I just wanted to mention for people who don't know, Acies was a SPAC that you joined. You acquired Play Studios and helped Play Studios go public. So you've kind of got your hands in a lot of different pots here in the way that you are investing and helping companies move forward. When you look at mergers and acquisitions, you guys have been really thoughtful in the way that you're trying to hit areas that are underserved or maybe that have not been tapped but show real potential. Can you talk to me a little bit about Hefe Sports and some of the other areas that you're focused on?
Yeah, 100%. As you look at a lot of the operators, they're of course going and targeting the immediate market, those players that want to bet, have a proliferation for betting, and are going to sign up as soon as the market opens. When we looked at it, there are enormous demographics out there that we would consider to be underserved, to use your words. What does that mean? To pick on two companies, so the Latino community within the US is approximately 60 plus million people, and not to suggest in any form that they have a homogeneous attitude. They certainly there are cultural aspects with regard to what they enjoy doing, the sports that they target, how they like to be contacted, how they like to interact. And so Hefebet is directly targeting them through language, the Spanish language, Portuguese languages, through what the sports that they would like to see, the information that they would like to have. That's not being targeted directly. So we really like that. Women are 50% of the population. Women's sport is an enormous contributor to how people spend their time. Yet if you look at traditional mainstream media, very little focus is placed upon it. And again, not to lump everybody together, but to think through that minus 110, plus 110, with an enormity of stats on a website, in a UI environment that's completely confusing, will attract that individual. In our minds, that's a wrong approach. If you could specifically target what people want, you're going to draw ever more people into this activity as an entertainment product, and it's going to broaden the penetration and significantly increase the market size.
So you're talking about human demographics. What about geographically being diverse? Are you also looking for opportunities for businesses that would, I don't know, Brazil seems like an opportunity that is ripe for new investment and for mergers and acquisitions?
There's 200 million people in Brazil who look at esports in the same way that the American psychology looks at sports. So, and it's also not confined to the Brazilian population. Esports is a good example. You can play from Brazil, somebody in Thailand or Japan or the US. So we think of that as an enormous market in its infancy. It's a niche product right now in terms of people's awareness of it. But if we fast forward 2, 3, 4 years, We think esports is going to be as important as what sports is today, and it's going to be global.
And are you trying to diversify also by technology, media, services? Where are you thinking about where your money works best?
And honestly, across them all. What do we really care about? We care about differentiation. What is it that's going to sustain an early stage company, which is the VC investing we're doing right now, and cause that to become tomorrow's industry leader? But that can cut across B2B, B2C, just about every element of it. We're not in any way confined from an investment standpoint.
Wayne Kimmel is the head of 76 Capital. I want to talk to you a little bit about the investments that you do too, but interestingly, when you spot a company that you think is worth investing in, what you're seeing is acquisitions taking place shortly thereafter.
We're seeing everything. I mean, quite frankly, that's one of the amazing reasons why I'm so excited to be here. And what we always talk about is investing in the next great entrepreneur who wants to build something that would be incredible, whether that's in the sports betting world, the esports world, and the sports tech industry. And I just love that this is iGaming next. So it's perfect. It adds, I feel like we can, this is exactly what it's all about. And, going back to something we were talking about earlier, I think also, Contessa, is that, this is great that we're here in New York. We need to do more of this and educate more of Wall Street as to what really is going on. We need to take people around the world to see all the things that are happening across the industry today, because amazing things are happening, but it's very early. But how many of us have been to the only sports book inside of a sports bar in a suburban mall in Philadelphia? There's one in the country today. And who would have ever thought that that would happen in the US? It's happening. How many of us have really been out and spent time at Circa, the gigantic place there, and to see what's going on and see how that, because that's what's going to happen here, right? As I shared with you as we were walking up here, David Purdom from ESPN made fun of me back in 2017 when he's like, I said to him, there's going to be a sports book and a sports bar in Times Square where you're going to see the lines right next to AAPL and MSFT and all that stuff. You're going to see the lines streaming across the ticker symbols here. And he's like, you sure you want me to print that? Like, yeah. And where are we today, right? And that's what we're all about at 76 Capital, investing in those types of companies, those entrepreneurs who are truly pushing things in this industry.
By the way, who loves hearing that? Hard Rock, which is opening their new hotel in Times Square tonight, and definitely going for a New York gaming license. They're like, well, we're already here. Let's do it in Times Square. So your prediction probably would find a very welcomed audience with the Seminole Tribe.
Well, Google it. It's out there. It's crazy, but it's really, it's amazing. And it's one of the things that, we think about all the time because that's what's happening, right? So, the idea of, as we talked about, creating the CNBC of sports betting. Again, people were like, Brent Musburger's old. What is he? This is no way this could ever really happen. But we did that, right? We created VSiN. We sold that to DraftKings. Like, that was amazing to be able to create these new types of businesses in the world of gaming. And then, as we were talking about here on this panel, doing, and selling the businesses and really getting some great value for those types of companies.
You're looking at very early stage technology and ideas. Do you think in this environment, with all of the consolidation that we're seeing, do you think it's still possible for an innovator, an entrepreneur, to remain independent and still grow and compete in this dog-eat-dog environment?
Look, it's moving so fast. I think these deals are going to get done. There's going to be a lot of work for the bankers, because the big companies, they need this innovation. They need to innovate with augmented reality, with NFTs, with the metaverse and Web3. Like, all that stuff is coming and is part of the overall gaming industry and just sports industry in general. I mean, there's this incredible convergence between the tech world, the physical world, and it's just all coming together today. And we haven't really seen some of the big tech players really rear their heads into this industry, but it's coming and it's happening every day. I mean, wait till we see what NFL football looks like with Amazon on Thursdays. Now, keep your eye on what's happening with Apple and the baseball. What they're doing with baseball, but how they're doing it, how they're broadcasting these games in different ways, and adding in all of the lines and the betting and the games and the way for you to interact and really have an immersive experience. This stuff is unbelievable.
It's interesting because we're talking a lot about the acquisitions and the mergers that are made inside gaming. But given the interest from Disney, Sony, Google, Meta, Chad, do you think it's possible that one of these outside players, Amazon is known for going in and disrupting an industry, whether it's insurance or cloud or, book selling at the beginning. What do you think it's possible that an organization like Amazon could end up owning a global gaming giant?
I think it could make sense for some of the other companies that aren't in the market right now. The difficulty is obviously becoming licensed in the gaming industry. That is still one major barrier for a lot of people. We were just listening to the Nevada Control Board meeting this week, hearing some of the companies that are trying to acquire other businesses and they're not in Nevada, and it is not a fun process for them. So that could be a barrier for some. We've heard from Fanatics. I think Michael Rubin has been on your show a number of times, and I think his statement was, we will be a top 3 player long term. And they've been very patient. They're kind of building their users. They're investing in a few different things. So I do think there's companies like Fanatics, like Bet365, who have the goal, the stated goal of becoming a top player, and they just have viewed this, what we view as a golden cohort period, maybe not so golden. They view it as, we're going to let everyone else lose money here, and then we're going to come in maybe next football season or the following one, and we won't have to lose $1 billion. And so I do think there will be some more players to come into the market. Obviously, as I mentioned, you have to have the tech, you have to have a differentiated product. And the other thing is, iGaming is the long-term profit center for all of these companies. You look at the revenues that we're seeing right now from Rush Street Interactive, from BetMGM, 60 to 75% of their revenues are coming from iGaming. So the fact that iGaming has taken a little bit longer legislatively, and there's only 7 states in the US here, and there probably won't be any this year, maybe 1, I think that's giving some of those other companies confidence that they can be patient, because ultimately it's the cross-selling from sports betting to iGaming. What we're seeing right now is the average iGaming user is spending about $300 per month. Those are numbers that have come from Rush Street Interactive and Golden Nugget, some of the leaders. Sports betting is about $100 per month. So I think that makes the long-term acquisition and market share discussion broad.
But if you think if you're an investor who thinks, okay, we are going to see legislatures across the nation adopt iGaming and beyond. Again, I'm focused on the US mostly, but I know that there are big opportunities in other regions of the world. Does it make sense, Edward, to go in and buy a company early and get the customers in? Play Studios has customers that are playing social games, right? They're on there playing blackjack for free or whatever. You get those customers in-house and you hold on to them until iGaming becomes legal, versus waiting it out and seeing if your competitors lose enough money to have to be acquired themselves.
Play Studios is a grand example of that. They have 2 inherent advantages. One, of course, because they operate within the social sphere, they can operate on a pan-US basis. They're not confined by the regulatory restrictions of for-cash iGaming. So the audience that they can reach dwarfs that of the iGamers. And advantage number 1. Advantage number 2, specific to Play Studios, which they targeted from the very beginning, is in your traditional social gaming world or casual gaming world, you pay money and you get entertainment value. That's the proposition. With respect to Play Studios, they take it one stage further. They're partnered with in excess of 200 different consumer brands across the US and, well, indeed across the world. While you are playing for entertainment, you're accruing points. You can then swap those points for real-world experiences, be it a helicopter ride, a cruise line vacation stay, or stay at a hotel. That's really important for everybody within the ecosystem. From the player's perspective, it gives you a tangible reason to want to go onto their site versus another's where you don't have that reward. And then from a brand's perspective, what better way to engage and acquire a new user for inventory that otherwise could have very well stayed empty, be it an empty bed on a cruise line, an empty bed within a hotel. Now you have not only the incremental revenue stream from that particular stay, but they're incorporated into your loyalty reward network, and you have that relationship in order to be able to target them going forward. And that's really, really important long term.
That is also cross-selling in a way, in a very concrete way, but that has become so important with all of these different acquisitions that you're cross-selling from Golden Nugget Online. They get not only the iGaming customer that Tillman Fertitta had worked so hard to acquire, but they also get exposure in all of Fertitta's restaurants and in his properties around the nation. So it seems to me like the cross-selling part of that, does that make a target for acquisition all the more attractive if you know I can cross-sell you into sports betting, iGaming, media, advertising, whatever? What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, clearly, I think you cited a very good example. The Fertitta's business has 600 high-end restaurants, 60 across 60 brands. They've got 5 casinos, they've got hotels, they've got amusement parks, and he's a land-based guy. Although he set up the Golden Nugget Online Gaming and it rapidly became the most successful business in Atlantic City, he realized that over time you needed scale. And he's not one to waste money. He's a guy who likes to make a lot of money. And the idea of spending tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to build customer base with the hopes of making money later is just not for this guy. So he made a deal with DraftKings. And I think he's the largest shareholder now of DraftKings by making this transaction. But for DraftKings, they got 2 things. Number one, they got the Golden Nugget Online Gaming business, and that's a very profitable business. The iGaming business is the only, sports betting is just an on-ramp to get iGaming. Actually, interesting statistic, if you look at New Jersey, they were doing $300 to $400 million of iGaming revenues before PASPA. After PASPA, it doubled. And after PASPA matured a bit, the last 12 months, it doubled again. So it proved the point that sports betting is the on-ramp, and that's how you get in the iGaming. So I think what they did, and to your point about this, the all cross-selling, is by being able to tie into the other businesses that are active and are unique. One of the problems with using leftover inventory, if you will, is that lots of companies are doing that. The timeshare companies doing that. The hotel companies doing that. They all offer this. This is something that's more live.
Do you think there's more synergy with iGaming, online sports betting, or lottery? Like, does one bring any more synergy to the table than another?
Look, iGaming and sports betting are frickin' frack. They work well together. It's a natural progression. You're betting on one thing, and you have time between games, and it introduces you to others. Lottery is a different business, and it's a different customer base. But I think it ultimately you're going to see the lottery companies tie together with us in the future.
And then you have the media part of this as well. It occurs to me, I'm watching my kids, they're 8, on Netflix, and they can control the way the story goes. And it's not just a one-off. Now they're starting to do this programming where, to me, the incorporation into gaming, video gaming, I mean, not gambling, but then graduated, the media part of this becomes intrinsic and interwoven in a way that we have not seen before. What do you think, Wayne?
Look, you're right about that, and I think that this frickin' frack thing may have a new cousin, maybe Mary or something, right? Which is all about social, right?
Right.
There's a social piece that was never part of this world until now, I think, and we're seeing that where people are discussing their bets. They're talking about their wins, their losses, whether that's on Twitter or on Instagram or TikTok or anything. I mean, it's really interesting to see what's happening now. And what we look at is sort of the next part of what's happening here. So that part I think is amazing. And then it's also how do we then compete and wager against each other and Edward and I, just made an investment together in a gaming platform, allow people to wager against each other to play video games. We're also investors in a company called Lucre, which allows you to also wager, on the peer-to-peer side of just the gaming side. So those are really interesting things that are now happening that are new and new cousins that are coming into this world.
So I want to go back to this whole topic of M&A and just kind of run down the panel and play a little game. Like, if you could, who would you match up? Who would be a great target and who would be the great acquirer? And Wayne, because you're the tardy student, you get to go first.
Well, I think I think it would be amazing. I mean, we talked about this earlier. I mean, let's just take Amazon. I mean, Amazon acquires DraftKings. That would be really unbelievable. And it makes your head hurt. Sorry, Chad. But I mean, those types of things can happen. I mean, Amazon already has all your information. DraftKings is trying to get everyone's information and get everyone into their world. Why shouldn't they? We may as well just, I won't say anything more. I'll leave it with that.
I like it. I can see that. What do you think, Chad?
I'd say on the B2C side, I do think Rush Street Interactive could be a good addition for a lot of companies. They are licensed in Connecticut, New Jersey, New York. This cluster that a lot of companies that aren't in the space would certainly like to be in. They're only losing $100 million. They're one of the leaders on the iGaming side. And they do have some tech, so I think that could be one for companies looking to get in. On the B2B platform or content side, the publicly traded companies that we always look at are Bragg. They just acquired a few content providers. They're doing really well. That's an interesting little company. We cover GAN. They're a platform provider. They also have sports betting and iGaming. And then obviously the other one that's been out there is Kambi, losing some of their big contracts.
I thought we got to do one. What are you doing?
No, I'm interested.
You're interested in what you're saying.
I agree with him.
All right, so those are mine. I apologize.
No, I like it.
I get excited when we talk about
You're the
names
star
that I don't
student.
have to listen
You
to
get
their
a gold
conference calls
star
anymore.
already. Rob, what do you think? Who do you think would make a great target?
I think DraftKings is the one at these levels. And I don't see there being a lot of upward pressure on that stock for a while. And so I think someone who's making money, who's got the cash flow to tie in together with DraftKings would be an interesting one, without saying who.
No, come on. I mean,
We're
you
not there
said
too much.
someone who's got the cash flow. I can think of a couple big global gaming companies that still have cash on the books to spend and are not already in this business.
Yeah, I think someone who is in Europe and can open them up for Europe too would be that's more of the iGaming. Think of the Leo Vegas deal and just make a bigger scale of that.
So traditional, Rob. Come
Yes,
on.
I'm a traditionalist.
You're like an old dude. Come on, let's get with someone come up with something like crazy, right? Like the NBA buys one of these companies, right? I mean, or the NFL.
That's what
right?
we have you for,
right? That's what's gonna. I mean, honestly, that's what's gonna happen, right? It's going to be something like that. That I mean, it only took us 15 minutes to say Michael Rubin's name, but I mean, seriously, that's the opportunity right now. There's this opportunity to really innovate what's happening. I mean, this is, as you said, I mean, sports is this door that's opened up this whole world to North America now, and this opportunity to really do something special is much more than just some company comes in and just in the industry and just does their thing.
I think Chad made the point about licensing. It's a big issue. I mean, we deal with companies. I've been dealing with companies for decades in this space who want to get into the space, and once they get into the licensing element and what impact that's going to have on their business, they say, not worth it.
Once you have to hand over your baby's passport to the regulators, it's
you got to provide your personal check for the last 10 years.
But we're investing in
Amazon's
companies to do this, right? The odds on compliance, the U.S. Integrities, the One Complies, and all those companies. I mean, there are companies out there that are taking care of all those issues. Those are old time issues.
Everyone
yes,
is
Old time issues, but they're not going. They're not going
And
away.
they're not
not
going
going
away.
away.
They're not going away, but you can make that whole world.
When they come to a national licensing standard, when they do that,
Contessa, when? Hear
one of
that?
your companies do that, then your idea will make more sense.
Well, and that's a question that I've brought up a lot about why isn't Congress tackling this? Because, what I've heard is that the licensed operators don't want that to happen because they've already spent a ton of money in the states to have
Exactly.
competitive advantage. Edward, who would you pick?
I think the vision that you're showing is going to happen, but it's not going to happen for several years. In the interim, what do you need to solve? You need to solve the hemorrhaging of cash flows. So what I would do if it were at me, I would put Playtika, makes $1 billion of EBITDA, together with DraftKings, the two leaders within the space. From a DraftKings perspective, I can now market on a pan-US basis outside of the regulatory paradigm, take their cash flow. That then offsets the $1 billion of losses that I'm making. I've doubled the size of my business, and I'm in a much better position then, I shouldn't say better position, in an alternative position to be able to meaningfully grow. Now take a look at that business, and now we can talk about, I think it was the Amazons of the world, or the Googles of the world, or the sports teams of the world in terms of who they've got access to. I think that's a phenomenal transaction.
Just like CNBC, it always comes back to DraftKings. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for the panel. I'm off right at 000.